welcome to Cover Story. Today we are in conversation with RSS leader Ram Madhav. We're going to be talking to him about his latest book, Partition Freedom. In fact, it's a very timely book coming as it is on the 75th year of India's independence, but it also raises a lot of important questions. And at a time when we are revisiting the partition, we are also looking at the colonial legacy in the wake of the Queen's death. So it's a timely book, a thought-provoking book, and it has found new questions about the partitions that I think really need to be asked. The title is very provocative, Partitioned Freedom. And in fact, congratulations. I don't know where you find the time to write your books, Ram Madhavji, but this is, I think, one of your best books, I would say. You begin with a very interesting premise, where you say that no one wanted partition, yet no one fought against it either. So can you explain the theory, the premise of the book?
Yes. When the Muslim League under Jinnah announced that they wanted formal partition of India, it was in 1940 at a conference in Lahore. That time, the reaction of the entire Indian leadership, right from Gandhi to Nehru to Patel to Rajendra Babu, you name any leader, every one of them had either rejected it outrightly or called it a fantastic idea, a fool's idea, meaning it will never, it can never be realized. So everybody was opposed to it when it was actually mooted by Jinnah. So much so that Jinnah used to confess to his own friends that although I'm demanding for partition, I'm sure it's not going to happen. That was the situation in
fact, can
1945.
I interrupt you and blurb where you compare Gandhi and Jinnah, where you say Gandhi began his political innings with the slogan of Hindu-Muslim unity, but he ended up by saying, since partition is inevitable, let it had happened. Jinnah, on the other hand, opposed it, and he fought for partition.
Yes, a very important distinction that we have to understand here is when Gandhi came to India in 1915, he had that South African experience behind him, in which he had the Hindus and Muslims coming together and fighting with him for their rights there. So he believed that in India, I have to achieve that freedom first, Hindu-Muslim unity, then I should strive for India's independence, that unity first and then for freedom. So his slogan initially used to be, without Hindu-Muslim unity, no freedom. And Jinnah, he started his career insisting that, Hindu-Muslim unity is fundamental, it is there. We should actually now work for freedom together. Gandhi's preference for Hindu-Muslim unity, Jinnah's preference was for, don't spend too much time on that, let us work for freedom. 20 years roles reversed. By 1940, Gandhi realized that Hindu-Muslim unity, his campaign is going nowhere. So he declares that Hindu-Muslim unity can wait, but I have to first secure independence for united India. But I said by then it was too late. Whatever happened in those 20-30 years had already almost made it fait accompli for partition of India. Jinnah, who started off as a campaigner for united India, ended up as the champion of partitioned India.
But yet, there is also a comparison to the British attempt to partition Bengal. And that was stopped by everybody got together, Hindus, Muslims, all the freedom fight leaders, and they prevented that. When the partition of India happened, that same effort was not happening, as you note in your book.
Right. In fact, this whole book is about those two important partitions. It's a story between two partitions. Correct. What happened between those two partitions. In 1905, when the British decided to partition Bengal, it was just partition of one province. In fact, the then British leadership used to say that only Bengalis would complain. But on the contrary, we witnessed an All India movement in the name of Vande Mataram movement. The whole country stood up. Lal Bal Pal became the leaders. And the result was in 1911, British had to announce the annulment of that partition. In 7 years, we had undone that partition. But in 1940, when Jinnah announced partition of the whole country, why could we not stand up? Why could the whole country not stand up? In fact, that is the important lesson we have to learn. Something that happened between 1905 and 1940 was the reason why finally, when partition happened, nobody was there to stand up against it. In fact, Gandhi in one occasion, he says that yes, I never wanted partition. In fact, he said, vivisect me before vivisecting India. You have to kill me first. But he says, I said it based on the sentiment of the people at that time. Today, when the partition was actually happening, people were not ready to come onto the streets and fight against it. So there's no other way but for us to accept partition. So why that situation came?
What is your theory?
No, I'm saying those 30 years, especially after, I would say 1915, when Gandhi entered the scene, the way Congress conducted the national movement between 1915 and 1947, what all they did, how they inadvertently, in their over zealousness to bring that Hindu-Muslim unity, bringing recalcitrant Muslim League to Congress side, how they went on giving one concession after the other. Finally, those concessions had resulted in Muslim League further fortifying its position. Instead of actually joining the mainstream Congress movement, they further fortified our position. They went becoming stronger and stronger with each appeasement move that Congress was making. League was becoming stronger.
Right.
So a stage came when even Congress leadership felt that we now cannot fight with them. We better agree for partition.
So then there is a very strong undercurrent of appeasement politics by various Congress leaders, and began by Gandhiji. In fact, he is the one who really got the working committee to agree to Muslim League's demands. Is that where the problem really began?
Of course, that whole period of compromise after compromise, which started with Khilafat movement, in a way ended with separate electorates, in a way. When Khilafat movement was supported by Gandhi in a big way, big
and
time.
Opposed by Jinnah, as you note.
Jinnah was, in fact, on that one reason, Jinnah left Congress in 1920. That was the beginning of the appeasement politics. From there, till they achieved separate electorates in mid-30s, Gandhi and Congress made compromise after compromise. Whether it was about national language, whether it was about national flag, whether it was about even singing of bhajans or singing of Vande Mataram in Congress meetings. On every such issue, they went on compromising with the very recalcitrant behavior of the Muslim Leaguers, in the hope that these compromises would bring them closer to Congress. But what happened was, it had only paved the way for more and more such demands to rise, Muslim League moving farther and farther away.
So as is now becoming a fashion also to blame Nehru and blame Gandhi also to an extent. So would you be blaming these two leaders? Are you singling anyone out?
My book was not intended for any blame game. It was intended to place the facts as I see them before the people. Now, as I said, by early 40s, Gandhi had realized that his path, which he thought would bring results like in South Africa, was not yielding results here. Instead, it was actually pushing country towards partition. Then he declares that no further talk of Hindu-Muslim unity, that can wait. We will get it after India's independence. What I want now is independence first. And independence for a united India. In fact, in that, he goes to the extent of offering to Jinnah that you take over the leadership of the whole country. But please keep the country united. Jinnah tells his biographer, see, I knew Gandhi well. He would have first thrown the British out, promising me the whole country. Later, he would have thrown me out also. So, I don't believe in that man. We call him wily leader and all that. But Gandhi was committed to keeping India united, but it was too late for Gandhi also.
In fact, there is a lack of trust between Gandhi and Jinnah from the very first meeting.
Yes, it was a very interesting...
lack of connect, not trust.
Yes, in fact, one biographer of Jinnah says this, and he categorically says that the seed of discord between the two, the mistrust between the two, was sown in the very first meeting that took place in 1915 in Mumbai. There was a felicitation program of Gandhi on his return from South Africa, organized by the Gujarati Samaj, which was chaired by Jinnah, incidentally. Jinnah also happened to be a fellow Gujarati. So it was chaired by Jinnah. Jinnah was chairing that. It gave a lot of happiness to Gandhi. In fact, Gandhi says, I am so happy that a Muslim is chairing my session. But what happens in that meeting was that when Jinnah rises to speak, he starts speaking in English. Gandhi interrupts him. Gandhi says, no, don't speak in English, speak in Gujarati. That taunt was never forgotten by Jinnah, although Jinnah continued to speak in English and he never bothered about it. But that was the first seed of little discord that was sown, and some historians feel that that gap kept on growing subsequent years. Then came Khilafat, where Jinnah openly opposed Gandhi, siding with these Khilafatists. He says Khilafat should not be supported. But Gandhi said, no, that is an important compromise we have to make in order to keep Muslims on our side. Then Jinnah says, then I won't work with you in these politics. My politics is different. I won't do any such, bargain, deal. For me, it is a common, India's independence is a common goal for every Indian. It should not be a kind of bargain. Then he leaves Congress in 1920 and joins Muslim League.
In fact, religion was never part of Jinnah's politics, as seen even initially not part of his politics.
Until 1930s, it was not a part of his scheme of things. But what happened was, after the second roundtable conference, Jinnah decided that he had no future in India, decided to stay back in England. He stayed there until 1935. At that time, Muhammad Iqbal became one of the leaders of Muslim League. He championed the Muslim politics on behalf of the Muslim League in 1936, 1930s. In 1935, when Jinnah decided to come back to India, it was Muhammad Iqbal who told him that you will only succeed if you play Muslim politics in India.
And
that is when Jinnah decides that for my own survival in politics, I should rather now give up my secular avatar, I should become a communal Muslim. So he starts wearing his sherwani in 1937.
That's right.
Until then he never wore any Muslim symbolic dress ever. He was not a masjid going or namaz reading Muslim. He was not a religious Muslim at all. But that advice given by Muhammad Iqbal was the turning point in Jinnah's life.
In fact, there is a chapter, Unity Discarded, General Dethroned, where you end, it's a very interesting saying that when after independence happened and someone came to Gandhiji and said, at last our non-violent army has won against the powerful British. Gandhiji's wry response was, yes, but it has also defeated and dethroned the general.
As I said, Gandhi was not in favor of India's partition. He went and talked with every leader. Of course, he talked to Nehru and Patel, then he went to Wavell, he went to Mountbatten also, insisting that please don't partition India. We can find ways. And at one point, he tells Mountbatten that you offer Jinnah the leadership of the whole country. Please don't partition, let him take over the whole country. Mountbatten was taken aback. Mountbatten asked Gandhi, how would Jinnah react if I tell him this? Gandhi says, yes, I know, Jinnah will say this is Wily Gandhi. This is mischievous Gandhi proposal. He will first push you out and he will tell me that you take the whole country. After you leave, he will throw me out also. So I don't trust Gandhi, give me my Pakistan. So Gandhi was insistent. What happened was, after 1945, it's a very important part which many probably do not know. The Congress leadership stopped consulting Gandhi.
Yes.
And Gandhi at one point tells Nehru, when Nehru comes to meet him, that, please tell me what you are doing. Nehru promises, I will tell you, but they never tell him. This partition plan also was not discussed with Gandhi. When Gandhi gets to know about it through media, he calls Nehru and Patel. Nehru refuses to come. Patel comes. Patel says, no, we all have thought about it and decided about it. In other words, saying that we didn't need to consult you. So such things used to happen. So that's why when partition was to be placed before the Congress Working Committee was very angry about partition decision of Nehru and Patel. Gandhi intervenes to convince them that this is the best decision that could be taken in this situation. Please don't be angry, mad at our leaders. They are seasoned leaders. Please accept it. Then, on Gandhi's words, everybody says, okay, all right, now that we have taken this decision, let's go by it. When he comes downstairs, somebody asks him, now are you happy? This has been your wish that India should get independence. Now you are getting independence through non-violent means. Then Gandhi says, yes, probably independence has been won, but general has been dethroned. I didn't want a partitioned independence.
Correct.
I didn't want a partitioned freedom. But I had to accept it.
But the title is really provocative and interesting. I'm going to talk to you about what made you write this book and the title, but after a quick break. Hello and welcome back to Cover Story. We're in conversation with RSS leader Ram Madhav, and we're of course today talking to him about his latest book, Partitioned Freedom. Very interesting title, Ram Madhavji. What, I mean, one can see where your thought was going, but why, what made you pick up this book and write this?
Okay, the main provocation or motivation was when Prime Minister Modi 2 years ago gave that, call that we should remember the horrors of partition on 14th of August. So that Partition Remembrance Day you call it, or Partition Horrors Day, some people call it, whichever way you call it. When that event was initiated in the country, I thought that maybe it's time to place some facts before the people. That effort has led to this book, but I must mention that I authored a book on the same topic 30 years ago in 1990 in Telugu. That time I was very, very critical of Gandhi because of my limited knowledge. I was just 25 years old, my knowledge was limited. So I authored a book. Over the last 3 decades, I have read more about India's history of independence. I came across many newer facts. I thought it is time for placing those facts before the people. Gandhi used to say, I believe in that, that consistency is only the quality of the dead.
Right.
You have to be consistent only with truth. You come across new facts, you learn new things. Be consistent with the truth, not with your arguments in 1990. So I probably.
So what is the change that you have made, the learning that you have had between the two books?
Well, one thing remains certain, that this policy of appeasement by the Congress leadership in 1920s and 30s was one very important reason for the rise of Muslim League. But last 7-8 years. Between 40 and 47, much more had happened beyond this appeasement also, that had finally resulted in we agreeing to that partition. For example, the British, their timeline was to give India independence in 1948 March.
Right.
They advanced it by 8 months. We did not have agreed to it. We could have asked Mountbatten, no way. We don't probably want this partition. Maybe Jinnah would not have been able to carry on for that long. And in 1948, he actually died. So many ifs and buts. Although history doesn't have ifs and buts, there are no ifs and buts in history. But as a hypothetical argument, I can make. But so many things have happened. We were in a hurry. In fact, Nehru confesses in 1956 in an interview, he says, yes, we were in a hurry, we became a little old.
Impatient.
We could not, we had it in us no longer to continue this fight with Muslim League, which is fighting on the streets. So, that history also one should keep in mind. So, while you should not compromise with these kind of forces, separatist forces like the Muslim League, which you encounter those sentiments even to this day, integrity, unity of the country is something for which you should be ready to sacrifice utmost. So in that, Subhash Chandra Bose becomes relevant. What Subhash Chandra Bose did in 1944 when he announced that Azad Hind government was, when he formed Azad Hind Fauj, his speech was this, that for India's independence, you should be ready to make ultimate sacrifices. Be ready for that.
But he also tied up with the Muslim League in certain election compulsions.
Okay, everybody did it, I tell you.
You said Congress also, but Subhash Chandra Bose.
In 1939, in Sindh, Congress joined hands with Muslim League to defeat government of a nationalist Muslim leader. Congress. In Calcutta municipality, Forward Bloc and Muslim League were together.
Fair enough, but
in 1942, Hindu Mahasabha and Muslim League were together in the government in Bengal. So everybody was experimenting in the name of pragmatic politics. That's why I mentioned it. These kind of compromises, these kind of
all adds up.
I would today I can say with with a kind of a retrospective argument, short-sightedness. We were all doing these things. So then we cannot pin the blame on any one individual.
Which is interesting, because right now the blame game is all coming to, the person who was in the seat at that time, whether it is Nehru or Gandhi, sometimes Patel.
They were no less responsible. There is no doubt that they played an important role, so they have to shoulder the responsibility. But for a country, it's not just about blame game. As a nation, if you want to really learn lessons, you have to understand the sequence of events. You have to understand where all we made mistakes. Assuming for a moment, Gandhi was doing something wrong, why did the nation not stand up? If there was no force that was standing up against Gandhi, why was that force not there? Eternal vigilance is the price that you have to pay. So today, when you talk about it, are we eternally vigilant? You have to be vigilant so this country is not divided again. So many such lessons one can learn from this.
Okay, before one more question I want to ask you is, we're having this conversation in the backdrop of again the debate on the colonial legacy and how we respond to it has happened because because of the Queen's death. There are two trains of thought. One is, of course, reject everything. The other says, now with the benefit of 75 years ho gaya hai, we should at least look at some of the positives that have come from the British rule. Which side are you on this argument?
We decided at the time of our independence movement itself that when we wanted the British to go, it was not just about changing the color of the skin of the rulers, that the white man will go and brown sahib will come and occupy it.
Right.
The idea was that India will bring back its civilizational wisdom. Based on that, it will build its statecraft, its society. The entire nation will be built based on that. That was the motivating factor for many people during the freedom movement. That's why Gandhi used to always use that phrase Ramrajya. But what happened was, in fact, very interestingly, in 1928, when Nehru's father, Motilal Nehru, submits his Nehru report, in which indirectly they agree for the British proposal of dominion status.
Correct.
Nehru revolts. Nehru says, I will resign from Congress. In fact, he resigns. He sends a resignation letter, he and Subhash. They send resignation to leadership saying, we won't accept anything short of total independence. Purna Swaraj was the slogan. What was Purna Swaraj? Not a semblance of colonial rule should be there. You will build your country on your own pride, your own glory, your own knowledge, your own wisdom, your own civilizational experience. That was Nehru in 1928. Purna Swaraj was moved by him. But same Nehru in 1948 made India a member of the Commonwealth.
Yes.
1953, he attended Commonwealth meeting for the first time. So, Commonwealth was a British legacy. Today, there are 15 countries in Commonwealth. Australia, Canada, New Zealand are big countries. The rest all are small countries. We are also there. But these 15 are still dominion countries. There, the Queen or the King now, today, he will be the ruler of those countries. Imagine a situation like that in India. Luckily, some wisdom prevailed, Ambedkar prevailed, that it will be a republic. So at least Queen is no longer our, we had our own president, we have our own president and all. But countries today are struggling. In fact, there is a big demand now in Australia, in Canada, that now at least this is the time we shed that colonial legacy. So countries do not want to continue with those colonial legacies because they gave railways, because they gave telegraph. You want to continue that legacy? No. You are an independent nation. You should have your own legacy. In that sense, we have done so much for that matter. We have actually changed the names of the streets. We have renamed the buildings. Some have
built statues of leaders that were not given prominence.
Today, but that also half-heartedly. Shall I tell you? This where Subhash Chandra Bose statue was installed by Prime Minister last week, there King George V's statue remained until 1968.
Right.
We became independent in 1947. For 20 years, we had put up with the statue of our colonial ruler. We were hesitant. We were not confident about our own legacy. Finally, when people agitated that too, not the government decision, when people agitated and started destroying their statue, then it was shifted to a different place. A Coronation Park was created, then it was shifted. So, we were not very sure. The independent India's rulership was not very sure about what identity to follow. At least here is a leadership which is very clear. We don't want any colonial legacy. We will build on our own strengths. In that sense, it's a good decision. Now to have Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose there under that same canopy where once King George V stood, a good response to colonialists, that anti-colonialist leader is today standing there.
And a good response to the Congress and his Nehruvian politics also, I'm sure.
On a lighter note, it was emptied, Khalid, vacated by King George V. Statue was removed in 1968. There were at least 5 proposals, 5 times, to put Gandhi there. All 5 times it was Congress government. Indira Gandhi was there, Rajiv Gandhi was there. They rejected it. Maybe they wanted somebody to go and stand there, but right thing happened. If it is not Gandhi, Subhash Chandra Bose richly deserves to be there, and we are very happy, we are very proud. Someone who played the most critical role in the last penultimate years of India's freedom. In fact, when India was granted freedom, the British government, Prime Minister Attlee categorically says it's the revolt in Indian army.
The Navy and Army.
Indian Navy and Indian Army cantonments. That forced them to decide that no, we can no longer rule it, and that revolt happened because of Indian National Army.
So he deserves
Subhash Bose deserves that kind of a recognition which he got today thanks to Prime Minister Modi's government.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for this conversation. And as I said, it's a very timely book and one I would recommend everybody read. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.